This is the third segment of the Harry Thomas Show Week in Review. Today is March 8th, 2008. I'm your host, Harry Thomas. The website is located at harrythomas.info. That's where you can find all the information that I talk about on any show. This come out of the New York Sun, Tuesday, March 4th, 2008. Global warming hysteria is claimed. A number of scientists and members of think tanks are rejecting the popular consensus that humans are causing global warming and that carbon gas emissions pose a mounting threat to environmental stability. Quote, "We have no power to affect global climate change, which will take us in whatever direction it may take us," a former business consultant, Christopher Monacan, said yesterday at the International Conference on Climate Change. His remarks came shortly after a consortium of scientists released a report rebutting a UN panel's recent assertions that carbon gas emissions are contributing to the Earth's current warming trend. Far from being a product of human activity, this warming pattern is part of the climate's natural ebb and flow, the report authors contend. And, a whole bunch of scientists did convene in New York City to talk about global warming issues. It says here, shining a mercury-filled light on global warming kooks. This come out of the Boston Herald, Monday, March 3rd, 2008. Here's your Al Gore global warming question of the day. Is it time to panic? If you're a Cambridge greenie who's just broken one of your environmentally friendly compact fluorescent bulbs in the kids' playroom, absolutely. If you're a rational person who can actually read a thermometer, not so much. Global panic attackers support CFLs because they use about one-third electricity. They also require about one-third more energy to manufacture and transport, but let's not confuse the nice liberals with math. I suspect government bureaucrats like CFLs because they're annoying, ugly, and don't work very well. Then there's the mercury issue. The activist group Environmental Defense calls mercury one of the most poisonous forms of pollution and a highly toxic heavy metal that can cause brain damage. They also support government mandates requiring more CFLs. Apparently, global warming kooks don't worry about brain damage. For them, it's a pre-existing condition. Now, climate scientists compare CO2 hysteria to terrorist hysteria. Dr. Tim Ball, the chairman of the National Resources Stewardship Project and an environmental consultant who has authored numerous scientific publications in the field of climate change, joined the Corbett Report recently to discuss the BC government's secret move to impose a carbon tax on the province. Among other issues, carbon taxes, he asserts, are another grab for money. Politicians are always looking for ways to get more funding. This is what he said.
First, what do you think of the idea of carbon taxes in general?
They're another grab for money. Politicians are always looking for ways to get more funding. In the U.S. and in fact, the Western world, they're using terrorism and homeland security as a way of taking away people's individual rights and say, "Oh, we're here to protect you, we're saving you." And the carbon tax is just another money grab. It will not change anything. Just as carbon credits can't change anything, because CO2 is not the problem. And in fact, to reduce CO2 in the atmosphere is the worst thing you can do, because it's absolutely essential to plant life. And so here they're proposing something that in fact is going to be detrimental, and yet they're saying that they're doing it to save the planet, and people have got to pay for it. It occurs, of course, because of the effectiveness of the propaganda of the people that are trying to say that the industrialized nations are causing problems. And environmentalism, very important. Yes, an important issue. We need to care about it. But it's been taken over by extremists and is being used to bully people, and particularly the politicians who don't understand the science. And that's another part of the problem with it. Michael Crichton wrote about the state of fear and the exploitation of people's fears. There's also an exploitation of people's lack of knowledge and understanding, which was part of what Friends of Science were trying to do. And so the politicians And by the way, what's interesting is off the record, many of them know the science. Many of them understand that the science isn't there, but the environmentalism has become so extreme that if you say, look, hold on a minute, immediately you're identified as not caring about the children, not caring about the planet, supporting these evil oil companies and oil energy companies.
Now, that, you heard it right there. The point is not a trivial one. Indeed, others have noted that the global warming hysteria is being pushed by many of the same globalists pushing the global war on terror fantasy. Listen to what Dr. Tim Ball had to say about that.
I understand that there's a conference coming up in New York that you'll be attending. Can you tell us a little bit about that conference?
Yes, it's a conference being organized by the Heartland Institute without any energy money input, by the way. It's all private funding and foundation funding, and it is a biased conference. I say that I don't know the organizers will be happy with me saying that, but I think biases are only a problem if you're not aware of them. The reason I'm saying it in this case it's a good bias is because the skeptic view, the alternative view, has been excluded from not only the conferences, but from the scientists on the IPCC being excluded and so on. There was a similar conference back in 2006 in Stockholm, but it got virtually no play, and they did allow a couple of the people that are not skeptics to attend, and one of them walked out and said this is a sham. And of course, this is part of the difficulty. Many of us are simply saying, look, let's get a full debate. Let's get all of the facts on the table. So this conference in New York is an attempt to do that. It isn't specifically an attempt to do this, but it does do it, and that is to overcome the argument that the science is settled, the debate is over, and that is absolute rubbish with regard to anything in science, but also to overcome the argument that there's a consensus, the majority of scientists agree, when that is in fact not true. And the consensus numbers they use are primarily from the IPCC of 2,500 members, but less than 300 of them are actually involved in the science part of the IPCC report. And so this conference will address those two things, although it's not being done specifically for those reasons. It's being done to allow a public forum for the scientific view and what's wrong with the science that's being used to force massive changes in the global economy and individual countries' economies and in society in general. And so it's a chance to balance the debate and let people make up their own mind, which has not been allowed to happen.
Now, the Weather Channel founder blasts the network, claiming it is telling us what to think. The Weather Channel has lost its way, according to John Coleman, who founded the channel in 1982. The Weather Channel has been an outlet for global warming alarmism. In December of 2006, the Weather Channel's Heidi Cullen agreed on her blog that weathercasters who had doubts about human influence on global warming should be punished with decertification by the American Meteorological Society. Now, Coleman said, I have a feeling this is the opening. If the lawyers will take the case, sue the people who sell carbon credits, that includes Al Gore, that lawsuit would get so much publicity, so much media attention, and the experts went on in the media to testify. I feel like that could become the vehicle to finally put some light on the fraud of global warming. And I just want to say to YouTube listeners, if you want to listen to the rest of the segment, you're going to have to tune into the podcast, and there's a link to that at the harrythomas.info.